All righty. It is a Wednesday already, October the 26th. It's almost Halloween, but we are not there yet. You are back with Seminole Sideline 365. As always, I am KB, and to my left, right, depending on how you're, well, I don't know how video works, is the Old Man K.B. Bruce. He's still with us for another week. Always good to see. I don't know. Never know. You know, when you get to your 90s, you never know, if it's going to be your last show. So great to have you back, Bruce, aka Old Man. How's it going on your end?
Why am I always having the Lee Corso moment? Like you're always saying, Lee, this is his final season. You're like trying to remove me.
That's how we get viewers. That's how we get viewers.
No, the chant from the comments from the viewers is we like the old man. We like the old man. So I think that's important. Doing well here. I'm on the road. I'm on the road again. I'm on the road. I'm on the road a lot of road games down here in Tampa, Florida. Beautiful weather, really, really nice down here. All of a sudden, all the winter birds start flying in from Chicago, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and then they come in and then they leave in March, leave us to the summer. But we're the tough ones. We stay all season. How are you doing, man? I heard you had a little doggy incident with your couch.
I think you're going to bring that up on the show. But,
what happened?
It's been an interesting week at the household, as you just mentioned. Had a interesting event with the dog where they tried to rip up half my couch. But luckily, that was averted. If you have more than one animal, you've seen a lot of awful things in your time, whether it's feces on the ground or dog pees in your bed, or you learn. Animals have given me more patience than I ever could have imagined or had 3 or 4 years ago. So no, it was they tore into the pillow or into the cushion of the sofa as I was cleaning the fabric on it, and it looked like a Build-A-Bear workshop with stuffing everywhere. It was not
WWE in your living room.
It was it was not a great sight at all. But you deal with it. You deal with it, and you move forward. You move forward.
It's like having 3 losses, right? You deal with it. You can't change what's in the past, KB. You can't change, but you can change the future. The Noles coming off 3 losses.
As Mike say, you do the best with what you can control, and I did the best with what I could control, which was clean up the mess. So that's what I did. That's what I did. The dog can't understand that I'm mad at him, so what am I gonna do? So that was my big issue for the week. But other than that, we're good. The weather's nice here. It's perfect fall weather, and I'm going to a football game this weekend, so I'm excited for that.
What football game?
This weekend, I'm taking the train down to Raleigh to see NC State against Virginia Tech. So that probably will be a blowout. We'll discuss this. We'll do our picks of the week later on. But Carter Finley's a really fun stadium to watch a game in. My friends are down there, so we're going to go down there and do some tailgating Thursday night tomorrow.
Nice.
For the Thursday night football, and should be a fun game. So
nice.
Looking forward to that.
Hopefully your couch will be okay when you get back.
Well, that's what I pay the sitter for. So we'll find out. We'll find out if they get paid or not. So
okay, all righty. Okay, 0-3. The Noles kick it off on Saturday. Saturday noontime game suck weekend, right?
They do. And just, I think it's worth noting before you go into the breakdown where we are in terms of our predictions for the season, because we're on the back half, the final 5 games, the final 5 games that I believe both of us think will make or break where this team stands. Like, we knew that middle part of the schedule was going to be tough. And now they're kind of going to the schedule's a little bit leveling now in terms of the level of competition. But now you play Syracuse. Syracuse is probably your remaining toughest threat on the schedule. They look probably the most formidable. Everything else looks like very beatable, and that you should win, but you never know. So let's go back to our predictions to begin the season. I'm going to pull up yours to begin, or mine to begin with. Or sorry, I'll pull up yours to begin with. Sorry, it takes up the whole screen. But this is where we started the year. Bruce predicted 8-4. he had us losing to LSU, but beating Wake Forest. That's where his two standalone miscues are so far. Other than that, he's perfect. So right now, you're perfect on your prediction so far in terms of the record wise.
In terms of the record,
but you just had 2 games mixed up. Going into the back half, the back stretch here, Georgia Tech, Miami, Syracuse, Louisville, Florida. You have us winning this weekend and then losing only 1 of the remaining 5 games. So interesting to note there that you have us going 4 out of 5, 4 and 5, or 4 and 1 the next 5 games. Now we look at my side. I'm perfect so far. I had us losing all 3 games that we just lost to the ranked opponents on our schedule. Winning at Virginia, Georgia Tech, or winning against Georgia Tech, and then dropping both Florida contests. So I have us going 3 and 5.
Ooh.
But still finishing the season at 7 and 5, which is, in my eyes and a lot of people's eyes, that's progress. But to your point, it would be losing the state of Florida. I think it would kill your recruiting, especially if anything. This will be in Jody cheering on the Hokies tomorrow. I will not be cheering for either team, but I will be cheering for a great game and good alcohol. But to the point, if we lose the state of Florida, if my prediction comes true, I think Mike Norvell's job is in trouble, because this is the time to really capitalize on recruiting. Miami is floundering. They just lost again last weekend. They cannot buy a win right now.
And they have a change at quarterback too.
Yeah, Crystal Ball's already blaming the media and how they're getting covered. Like he said that he put their expectations way too high this season, and he's already losing the media down there and fighting against them. And then you look at Florida, and they just haven't looked like a good football club at all either. They have no offense and no defense. They just don't look like anything that anyone thought they would be either. And so this really was Florida State's chance. If they can close out strong, this is their chance to really make up some ground in terms of recruiting the state really well.
But this makes these teams very dangerous to play. Okay. And that's why I said in tweets this week, the Florida and the Miami game for the state championship, the pressure is now building on Mike Norvell to at least split those games there.
No offense.
If he loses both,
if he beats Syracuse, like it would be a great ranked win, because they'll probably be ranked going in the matchup. But no one cares if you beat Syracuse and lose to Miami.
But people do care to beat Florida and to beat Miami. Yeah. That's where they really care. If you're having a mediocre season anyways, you're not going to the playoffs, you're not going to the ACC championship. Those 2 games are meaningful. If you drop both of those games, despite getting 6 wins and going to some crap bowl game, what kind of season did you really have, and what did you really prove? And that's going to be difficult to swallow.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. And, I guess we have to bring it up because it's something you tweeted about, and it was all across, Florida State lost a commitment on the offensive line with Ron Kearney flipping to Florida, which, had been kind of coming for a couple of weeks. He had taken down stuff from Twitter, his commitment, pledge, stuff like that. I know you went back and forth with a couple of people. I put one thing out there, we share the account, but I put one thing out there is that I personally don't get too excited about these commitments anymore, because, and you say it too, until someone signs, it doesn't really matter. And then the thing I said was, people are getting excited about Baxter, the highly recruited running back who's committed to Texas. He's coming back to town, and they're trying to flip him to Florida State. This cycle goes back and forth. And so, we lose a guy, we flip a guy and it just goes, it's a cycle. None of these things make any difference. If Florida State goes 0-5, if they lose 3 games in this back half stretch, a lot of guys are going to be flipping. So none of it really matters unless you take care of business on the field. If you take care of business on the field, I guarantee you the recruiting will take care of itself, even with NILs and stuff like that. But none of this stuff it really doesn't matter until you play the games and win the games. And then once you get to the actual signing day, because even winning games, it's still not guaranteed, but it helps in terms of how you can close out your recruiting class.
Yeah,
I don't get too excited.
I've said this for a long time. I don't follow these commitments that closely. There are guys that their job and paying the electric bill, to fill media time and to fill .coms and to fill airtime when they're on the air 5 times a day. They have to talk about this stuff because But we don't know anything about this offensive lineman that big. They always show the film of him decking some guy down the field, and we don't know who the kid was. Maybe he was some kid is no good, so he's blocking this guy down. We really don't know. So whether he flips or not, I don't get that excited. But when we call it a commitment, the word commitment is just loosely thrown around him. We spent enough time on this already.
And I don't know why anyone can get excited about recruiting anymore after just what happened with Travis Hunter. I'm just going to say it. Like, when you had a guy who you thought was all in for couple years, and then the day of signing day he flips, that just totally killed my excitement for recruiting anymore.
We also have a guy coming into Doak on Saturday, Jeff Sims. Jeff Sims was a guy all in, leader of the class, telling everybody to come to Florida State, and then boom, out the door he goes.
Yeah.
So I think it's a couple things on the same there.
It can be a player flipping. It could be a coaching staff that says we don't want you anymore. So it goes both ways. But that's the thing. The dynamics are constantly changing. And if you get excited every time a guy tweets or something, it would be exhausting if I was like some of these guys that had to follow it. And I know it's some people's jobs. They have to do it. Because some fans follow it like they go crazy. They have to see updates every day. I just can't be like that. It's too exhausting. It's not meaningful to me in the long run until it's actual signing day. You see who's on your staff.
Exactly. Well, we had a big. They had a big bye week. Noles coming off 3 losses. We now are 4-3 overall and 2-3 in the conference. And they needed a time off to reflect, and they did. And they went out and got off campus a little bit. Some of them, I know Dylan Gibbons went down towards the Fort Myers area, helped distribute some support money and support goods to hurricane victims down there through his charity that he sponsors, along with Jordan Travis. I think they were in that together. So I want to give them both a shout out there for a worthy cause. And I think it was time to take a deep breath for the Noles. And then they got back to business this week. I listened to Mike Norvell. It's the same coaching 101 language for the most of it. The only updates that came out of this week is about Fabian Lovett. When is Lovett coming back? And it's still a question mark. He said he's working out. He's in practice. But he's not going to push him if it's not right. It's a game time decision for Fabian Lovett. But I have also said, I don't think Fabian Lovett's going to have that big an impact at this point. I think he's going to be tentative coming in for the next couple of games. If you want him for anything, I don't think they need him for this game. I think he's going to get in on some snaps and some reps this game, but I think he's going to be more likely really in heavier action in the Miami game. So that's what I see on him. Jared Verse, there was no real discussion. I saw Jared Verse. I assume he's ready to go.
Yeah, I think it's an assumption he's ready to go.
He's full speed. Yeah. And this is where Jared Verse needs to make some tape. He needs to put some on tape. He needs to have a big game against Georgia Tech, rushing the quarterback. And he needs to have against the Miami coming up. Those would be good games for him to start making a bigger impact, because I don't think he's made that big impact this year. That's my personal opinion.
I don't think that's true. I don't see how you can say that.
Well, you can follow up in a minute.
The guy has the most sacks on the team. How has he not made an impact?
Wait a minute. Treshaun Ward, I doubt you're going to see him in this game. He's coming back into practice, but he's really limited. So you're not going to see him. They also had some good words for Darius Washington, who's basically been a utility player. He can play in various positions, and he's real close to getting a starting job. That was kind of the word coming out of the Mike Norvell camp for this week. Norvell said he was excited about the energy level. People were being competitive, but he kind of says that every week. So I don't know what you take out of that. He says guys want to get back and redeem themselves, get back on the winning track. And if you're going to get back on the winning track, this is the week. Yeah. This is the week. You've got Georgia Tech coming in with an interim coach. They're 3-4 overall. They don't really have any quality wins, and they have a conference. They're 2-3. They're second in the Coastal, if you can believe that.
Right. Well, they have a better conference record than we do.
And here's the final point. Right now, as I look, they're a 24-point underdog coming in.
And we'll talk about that.
24 points.
Yeah. It's
Go
slated not to
figure.
be close. It's slated not to be close, which I don't think
Right.
it should be. And we can dive
And
into that. One more.
later tonight, in a few minutes, we're going to have a special guest on. We're going to have our special guest on, and that's Bryce Koon. He's going to tell us more about this Georgia Tech team because that's who he studies.
Yeah, and and before we get into the Georgia Tech breakdown, a couple more notes. It was great to see that CJ Campbell's back in practicing again. We lost him, early, or right in fall camp, I believe it was. So it's good to get another running back back in the mix, at least practicing, because I think there were some good things that we were hearing about him, and to lose Trayshawn. We're probably going to lose Trayshawn probably a couple of games. Because he had surgery, so it's good to see Trayshawn or CJ coming back into that capacity. But I do think one thing you brought up about Fabian Lovett, not to belabor the point, I do think he's going to have an impact. I think just having his presence in the middle is going to make an impact. Probably, like you said, more so against Miami when he's not on much of a rep count, because I think there will be a rep count against Georgia Tech. Because hopefully you don't need him as much as you will against Miami. But I think having him just as a presence in the middle to clog up against the run game is going to be massive, even in some, because it's going to allow Jared Verse to do what he does on the edge. There's going to have to be more attention on the middle, and it's going to free up Jared Verse to do more of what he does. So I think having both of those guys healthy and available is going to make a massive impact on what this defensive line can do as a unit. So I'm excited about that. And I think we'll see a lot more. I'm hoping we'll see a lot more Ja'Kai Douglas. We saw a little bit of him last week. He scored a touchdown, right?
Right.
And I think we'll see a lot more of him in the mix as one of these playmakers that's speedy out of the backfield. You can use him in multiple ways, and he catches the ball very well. So I'm excited to see how they work him into the Georgia Tech game plan. But with that, we do have our guest, as you just mentioned, Bryce Koon. I'm going to bring him in. Bruce, if you want to give an introduction to him, I'll bring Bryce into the mix right now.
Hey, Bryce. Good evening to you out there.
Awesome to be with you guys tonight. Thanks so much for having me.
Where you calling in from, Bryce?
I'm located in Columbus, Georgia, so about an hour and a half south of Atlanta.
Yeah, that's near Fort Benning, isn't it?
Oh yeah, military town indeed.
I spent some time there back a few years ago. I'm not an old man like this guy says, KB.
90 is the new 70.
Yeah. I spent some real good years at Fort Benning. I went to jump school there. I went to Ranger school there. So
that's awesome.
Back a few years ago, Bryce. But listen, we're glad you're here. And Bryce, you correct me if I'm wrong. You're a sports broadcaster. You're host of your own show, The Crowded Booth. We want to give a shout out to that. I mean, that's a great show, and anybody on here or sees our show should go over there and see Bryce on there. You're also a Georgia Tech sports writer, and I think you're affiliated with 247 Sports. Or tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah. So obviously from Columbus, Georgia. We are just south of Atlanta. But yeah, cover Georgia Tech for 247 Sports. The GoJackets.com is our website. It's the affiliate site for Georgia Tech. And so everything from obviously football, men and women's hoops, and we'll dabble in some baseball because as you guys know, Seminole fans and Tech fans, that's a nice little rivalry that's starting to brew over the past couple of years. So a lot of fun with that, and host my own show that's throughout the radio here in Georgia and Alabama. So a lot of fun. And not a better time of the year, man. I keep telling people that. As a baseball fan, I'm a Braves fan. We're not in the World Series this year. It's okay. We can't have it every single year. I understand.
You do. You have had a lot of them.
But I had a lot of them. But, it's not a better time of the year, man, with all these sports heating up and getting into the heart of conference play as well. So Georgia Tech obviously haven't had the season that they love. But, the past 3 games under the interim coach, 2-1. So I think it's a lot better than a lot of people could have asked for.
Well, that's what I'll start off the first round of questions, Bryce. We pride ourselves on what we call no sugar, unfiltered, and raw, buddy. And and I watched some of your broadcasts, and I think you're there too, because you were saying, hey, whether you like what I say or no, some of you checked out. I like that. I think that's one thing that the media sometimes, at least the beat reporters that have access to college coaches, are somewhat afraid to go in and ask questions, and we see that even with Coach Norvell. I'll be honest with you. When I watch some of those press conferences, I'm bored to tears I'm bored to
A
tears.
lot of coach speak.
It's a lot of coach speak. But beyond that, this football team that you have, they fired their coach. You guys fired your coach halfway, not even halfway through the season. Why was he fired so early?
Yeah, well, look, first off, we can take it back to last December. Georgia Tech ended the regular season with a combined 100-0 losses to Notre Dame and Georgia. And listen, Notre Dame and Georgia are talented teams. Georgia won the national championship. Notre Dame is a perennial top 10 team. Not this year.
Yeah.
Not this year, but obviously last year under Brian Kelly was a really good football team. Mm-hmm. So there's no shame in losing. It's the fashion and way they lost. Like the way that they lost those games, not acceptable. Mm-hmm. So the money was there for the buyout last year. A vote of confidence from the then athletic director Todd Stansbury bought him another year. And as we know now, it ultimately tied the future of Jeff Collins and Todd Stansbury together, which is why they were both let go the Sunday after the UCF game. But heading into this year, this was a program. It felt like, everyone was all in. The chips were in with a new staff, new offensive coordinator saying, this is it. This is a last-ditch effort to save Jeff Collins' job. And I was just joking on another show about this. Whoever made the schedule to open up the year for Georgia Tech did Jeff Collins no favors. Clemson in a neutral site. You get to play Western Carolina. Ole Miss at home, like Lane Kiffin, one of the best offensive minds in college football.
Yep.
You lose that one. UCF on the road, which, look, that's a tough place to go play for a lot of teams.
Yeah.
The bounce house is tough. So, the reason that he was fired was not because of the losses. I don't think that you could have asked, I'll say this, a rational Georgia Tech fan, or if you would have asked me at the beginning of the season, I didn't think they'd make it through that gauntlet with more than one win. Truthfully, even counting Pitt at the time. I thought they could beat Western Carolina. I didn't feel confident about Clemson, Ole Miss, and UCF, and that was widely regarded kind of the national opinion. But it's the way you lost those games. Clemson, you had a chance, and that people are going to look back at week one and say, "Man, Clemson trounced Georgia Tech." They did. The final score 41-10. But if you watched that game, Tech was in that game halfway through the third quarter. It was a 10 or 11-point game before Clemson ultimately ran away with it. You go to the Ole Miss game, not even competitive. Guys, they seriously looked like an FCS team playing. I mean, that's what it looked like. And, I have an interesting audience of Tech fans because I am brutally honest about it. I think you have to be brutally honest.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
To be where it is. And then the UCF game, a very winnable football game. But, guys, the fourth blocked punt in 4 games, it was, changed the whole dynamic of that game. Mm-hmm. So the reason that Jeff Collins was fired was not because that he lost this season. It was the way that he lost.
Yeah.
You can't accept that anymore as a program. And like I said, Todd Stansbury tied his future together with Jeff Collins. And as we've seen, the powers that be made a tough decision. It's not just get rid of the coach, but when you fire the AD and the head coach on the same day, I don't know if I truly don't know if we've seen something like that in college football in a long time. I really don't.
Yeah.
The magnitude of that move, how rare it is, it's huge. And so, it's been done, and that we'll get into this probably, but the team has responded well. I've been very impressed with the way they've responded since that day.
Interesting. Very interesting. Let me ask one other question, and I'll turn it over to KB here for his questions. A lot of times the success of a coach is tied to the quarterback position. To win games, you got to produce points, you got to possess the ball, and you got to score in the red zone. Now, Florida State is rebuilding. We call it the climb here. It's the climb, and it was about being competitive. Just what you talked about there. First you get beat big, then you're getting beat small, but you're competitive. But being competitive, you could still lose every game. That's true, but you're in every game. But the quarterback position is very important. Where do you see Jeff Sims was coming to Florida State. He was going to be the leader of that class that was coming in, and then he flipped out. We won't get behind what he did. I don't really care what happened there. Is Jeff Sims the quarterback that you need there at Georgia Tech? And will he play on Saturday?
I'll answer your second question first. Will he play on Saturday? And then it'll be easier for me to kind of tie in that first question. Sims practice today, Wednesday, in pads. It's the last padded practice of the week. And that's huge. They need that.
Yeah.
This was an injury that dated back to almost a month ago now, to the Pitt game, where he originally injured it there. Now, from what we're to understand, it's a foot injury that cannot get any worse. And so what I mean by that is he cannot injure specifically what happened any worse than it already is. It's a pain tolerance. And it's one of those things that as fans, we sit here and say, well, just take a cortisone shot. Suck it up. Rub some dirt on it. And that's easy to say. That's easy to say from the comfort of my couch or the comfort of this chair. But what is not easy to do is have a 275-pound outside linebacker bearing in on you, a 320-pound defensive tackle coming at you with that type of injury.
Yeah.
So I think really where we're at with him is it's 50-50. He could play on Saturday if he can tolerate the pain, but how effective will he be? And so going into, is he the quarterback they need? I think you have to ask yourself, is a 70% Jeff Sims better than what you have behind him? And I don't know. I think that for Jeff Sims to be effective, he's going to have to run the football. Against Virginia, they didn't have a lot of designed runs. He can't really run the football like you want him to. So if he's not doing that, what are you really getting out of your offense? So I think that's when you have to say, can you scheme and turn the keys over to the backup, which is a whole other story right now. I know you guys saw the clip of him running out of bounds against Virginia. It's a whole other story. We'd have to do a whole other live show right after this to talk just about that. Can you scheme for the backup? And you better be ready to do that. And that's what I was unimpressed with last week. They weren't ready for that. You guys know this. If you want to be in a great college football team, you have to have a plan in place, a plan B, a plan C. That's what great college coaches do. Great offensive coordinators do that. They didn't do that. And so is Sims the guy? I think he's going to have to be. If they want to have any success the rest of the season, he's going to have to be your guy. You're stuck with it right now. The whole Jeff Sims story is an interesting arc at Georgia Tech. It's a very interesting one to see how it plays out.
Well, and to that point, and you bring up great points, what is this interim coach's goal, right? You guys had 3 wins. You have 5 games to go. You have 3 more. You get to a bowl game, right? Are they playing for a bowl? Is Georgia Tech in your mind playing for a bowl game? Are they playing to evaluate what they have on the roster? Is this interim coach playing? Is he looking to get a permanent job? Is he trying to manage his roster so that if he gets to a bowl game, he's a potential candidate for this job, right? Like in your mind, because I see potentially 2 wins on the rest of the way. You guys got UNC, you got Georgia. I'm going to count those as losses. Yeah. But you have Miami and Virginia Tech. Those are 2 very winnable games for any team, honestly. And then us, I do believe, and we can talk about this, but I do believe we should beat you all just based on talent, scheme, everything. But it could go either way. We've seen this matchup go sideways many different times in the history of it. So do you think that the interim coach and staff are playing, obviously play to win the game, as the phrase goes, but do you think that they're playing to see what they have left on this roster in terms of freshmen and scheming around that, or are they playing to say, we're going for 6 wins, no matter who we have to play. Justin's hurt. We're going all the way forward, even if he's at 70%. What in your mind is the goal right now for the season?
And like you said, obviously the coach speak answers, we're going to play every game like to win it.
Yeah.
You got to be realistic. I mean, you mentioned it, the North Carolina Georgia game. I've told fans I'll shave my head live on show if that happens. If you beat Georgia at the end of the year, I'll do it. A little incentive.
I love that, Bryce. I'm putting up $500 donation to Tallahassee.
Let's do it.
No, not for you, but for Coach Norvell if he beats Florida and Miami. I'm putting up $500.
I love it.
But I love that. That's great. Go ahead.
So going into this, I do believe they're playing, to go to a bowl game, because if you beat Virginia, I'd argue you were really well set up to go to one.
100%.
I mean, that was the must-win game to do that, and so I still think they are. I mean, it's taken a hit, and it's going to be a lot harder. If they could find a way to beat Florida State this Saturday, which is going to be hard. I mean, if they could find a way to do that, it'd be huge. I think it is all hands on deck because you have a lot of you still have a lot of veterans. Like there's still some really young talent, but there's a lot of experienced talent. And yeah, the COVID year's thrown a wrench. So you see a guy as a sophomore, but he's been there for like 7 years.
Yeah.
It's who knows anymore.
Like Sam Hartman, right? The guy's been there for like 10 years.
I mean, he's been there since I was in elementary school. I mean, it's ridiculous. So, you start to see some of these things kind of fall into place. And I think after the wins against Pitt and Duke, the team started to believe. Now, it took a hit last Thursday. It really did. But they said if we can go on the road and beat a Pitt team that, has made some other teams look pretty bad this year, why not? I think it's more of a why not us kind of mentality. And they embodies what Brent Key is as the interim head coach. I use the two monikers right here. It's a blue collar, bring your lunch pail to work type of mentality. We know, I think they'll never say this. This is my thing. They know they're not going to be the most talented team that rolls into Tallahassee, or really probably the most talented team on paper outside of Virginia Tech that's going to roll into a game the rest of the year.
Sure.
But if we show up, if we do what we do, if we execute, let the cards lay as they may, and let's see what happens. When the final whistle blows, let's see what happens. And I think that's kind of the moniker of this team. They still got a lot of fighters, and they got some talent. It's can they execute and play well?
And they've got a lot of motivation being a 24-point underdog right now, which is almost should be bulletin board material for them to say these people don't even respect you down there.
Mm-hmm. And I think they were a 22-point underdog to Pitt. When they beat Pitt, I think they were a 22-Pitt underdog. So we'll see. We'll see how it rolls.
And do you think this coach? I think it's interesting. Angel Cabrera is actually the former president of my university I went to, actually George Mason. So there is that connection to Georgia Tech there, which I find interesting. I actually forgot he had left us for you guys. But the announcement of letting go Geoff Collins and stuff like that. For the interim coach, do you think that he actually does have a shot at becoming interim, or do you think they're going to make an outside hire no matter what happens with this?
It's all about timing. If you would have asked me this a week ago, I would say, yeah. I said, look, this team's won 2 straight games. They love him. They've embodied him. He's a tech guy. He played for George O'Leary as an offensive lineman. He understands what it means to be at Georgia Tech and the challenges that come along with that. Since then, they've hired an athletic director. Since then, they've lost on national TV in, guys, horrific fashion. That was the worst college football game I have ever watched. And listen, I went, and I'm repping them right now. I went to a Division III school in Northwest Georgia, and that game last Thursday was the worst football game I have ever watched. My cousin had a Pee Wee football game last week. It was the worst game I have ever seen.
No, you didn't go to my grandson's game, his very first Pee Wee game. They got blown out 75-0. They stopped the game in the third quarter.
At least there was points.
Yes, at least there was points. I mean, so it's all about timing. At this juncture, I think they go outside and look. Okay. I think that you have to be more concerned with Key might be the right option for this group of players. He might be able to carry you for a year or two. But it's time to stop thinking like that. You have to, if you want to compete today's age college football, you have to think years ahead. Because I'll tell you one thing, and we don't like to talk about it, ACC people, the SEC's doing it, the Big Ten's doing it. It's time for this conference and these people to start thinking like that. You have to have that mentality. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. I think they go outside, they try to find someone that can set themselves up for success well beyond maybe into the late 2020s, late 2030s. You got to find your guy. So many programs have found their fit. Kansas, Lance Leipold, all these guys have found their guy. It's time. Georgia Tech fans should say it's time for us to find our guy.
You're such a recruiting hotbed too. Like Georgia is a state that if you, like you said, if you find the right guy, you're in a hotbed of talent. My only thinking is, was Jeff kind of set up to fail a little bit in terms of, and it was his choice too, is to switch away from that offensive scheme, which it's hard to, you recruit for, you have those type of players, right, in that triple option set. And he had to make that dramatic shift of finding new players that fit that scheme. Like, did he almost set himself up to fail, or was he still, they said, did he have enough time to get his players in, to run his, do you agree with that? Or do you think it was he almost set himself up to fail of trying to dramatically shift the offense away from it? I know you kind of have to rip that Band-Aid off at some point if you want to, like you said, advance the program in a way that, but I would like to get your thoughts on this because you do cover the program. what are your thoughts on shifting away from that offense? And do you think he had to be the one that made them step away from that offense so someone else could succeed in the future of it?
I say it all the time. He had to be the sacrificial lamb.
There you go. Okay.
To me, there was nobody that was going to have success in his position. Now, there were a lot of things now in year 4 that should have been better. Things in year 3 that should have been better.
Sure.
But I don't think outside of Nick Saban, or someone, I don't know anyone that really could have been successful in that transition. It was a big one.
What do you know? What are you hearing about Alex Atkins, our offensive coordinator and O-line coach, as being interviewed there at all, or at least his agent being in touch?
Yeah, I'll say personally, I think the phone call has to be made. I think it has to be to his agent. Atkins is a guy that I know Florida State fans love. They love what he is. They love his makeup. Yeah. I think if it's not Georgia Tech, he's going to take over, whether it's a Group of 5 or a Power 5 program one day, and he's going to do a great job. Like, I just think there's certain guys you see in that role that it's like he has the mental makeup and the awareness to surround himself with some good staff, and he's well respected enough to do it. Yeah. A lot of guys say, I know I got to have a good staff, but do people like you? And I think people like Alex Atkins. And so, specifically for Georgia Tech, I think right now, obviously, Georgia Tech's going with a search committee, which, I don't love it, but that's how Georgia Tech does things.
Most do, though. Most universities
do. Yeah, most do. So it'll be interesting if phone calls placed there. I think that they would be wise to, whether the phone picks up, whether Atkins wants the job. I don't know. But I think that the phone call, he's a guy that you have to identify and say, hey, let's at least give a phone call. Like, make him say no. Make him say, you know what, I'm really happy where I am. I want to spend some more time, or this is just not the right fit for me at this time.
Let me give you one more name.
I know it's going to be. I think you already probably know.
If you say what I think you're going to say.
No, prime time. Prime time. Listen.
Whoa. You probably heard the name 1,000 times.
Whoa.
My face is getting red.
Listen. Now, listen. I've been putting out on our channels a lot. He's going to get a call, and he's going to get a job in the Power 5, okay? Could this be the right job and the right pick for Georgia Tech?
Okay, so let's take a look at it from Tech's perspective. Yeah, like, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you want to do it, okay? Now, let's take a look. So I think it's 110% from Tech's perspective. Let's do it. Just blank check. Let's roll. Let's do it. Atlanta loves them. You'll have all the Braves and Falcons fans.
Branding would be amazing.
The branding would be unreal. Waffle House would even more.
And you'll get Travis Hunter. And you'll get
free all-star specials for everybody. Yeah. But let's flip it. I don't think it makes sense for him.
No.
Because the two things, and so this is where I flip from opinion to having heard these things. The two caveats that'll keep him from taking the Tech job. Now, I agree with you. He's going to get some Power 5 offers. And I'll tell you this, Auburn is a team to watch because Auburn is going to unload the bag on somebody because they can't afford not to compete. Yep. They can't afford. Yeah. The SEC's serious business. They can't afford not to compete with Alabama and Georgia. Yeah. But for Georgia Tech, it's financial, where they are financially. They're not there. They can't commit financial numbers to what they want to do with what he would want to do in that city. And 2, the academic limitations.
Yes.
People blow this out of the water and say, it's not a big deal.
No, it is.
When every single student has to take a calculus class, it's a big deal.
It's tough. It's tough.
I'm serious. Georgia Tech has, and I've heard this, one of my best friends played quarterback for Georgia Tech, and I've heard this on good authority. Georgia Tech has academic limitations that make it different from Vanderbilt, Stanford, Northwestern. Those are pretty high academic Power 5 programs. But and in varying ways, they've all seen success over the past decade.
Sure.
Vanderbilt, not now, but under James Franklin, went to a pair of bowl games, won 8 games twice.
Yeah.
Right.
So all of that to say, I think it makes sense from Georgia Tech's perspective to pick up the phone, to go down to Jackson, Mississippi, and figure out. I do not think it makes sense for Deion Sanders to walk into Atlanta and do that job at Georgia Tech. I don't. That's the only reason. So, Bruce, seriously, it didn't mean to come on your show and say, no, boo you. But I'm saying I don't believe from his perspective it would make sense to walk in the situation.
I don't want him in the conference unless he's at Florida State. So I totally agree with you. Don't
but you look at it this way, and I don't want to spend any more time on this, but you look at it this way from a Deion standpoint. He could come into Georgia Tech, get a boatload of cash, okay, bring in some of his best guys through the portal, right? Let's just say,
I don't think that.
and
bring in his son to play quarterback.
Well,
bring in his son to play quarterback. Bring in Travis Hunter if he's going to be any good. Who knows? But whatever. Bring in some of his key guys, and all he has to win. Now you can shut me down on this if I'm wrong. All he has to win is 8 games every year and go to a bowl game. But he doesn't have to win the national championship at Georgia Tech. And now let me finish, guys. Let me finish on this. There are certain programs in this country, and we're tiering now. We're getting into tiers that a UCF is not going to be a national contender every year. They're just not going to be. I call them stepping stone programs. Yeah. You're lucky. The guy at Wake Forest, they are lucky to keep coaches there as long as they do, because basically they've always been a stepping stone program. I don't disrespect Georgia Tech. To me, they are a stepping stone program. Deion Sanders comes in, wins 7 or 8 games, maybe 9, does that 2 or 3 years. He's created a next platform for himself.
So I'll say this. You're exactly right. I believe there are stepping stone programs, but in my opinion, by default, if you bring in Deion Sanders, that would change you being a stepping stone program. I think it would change the expectation too much. So if he goes there and wins 8 games, it's like, well, I thought Deion Sanders was supposed to be a miracle worker, and so, it's interesting. It's an interesting conversation. It's been had a lot. Yeah, I don't know. You've made me upset, Bruce. You've made me upset.
And I think to Bryce's point.
Good. That's what we like.
Georgia Tech is a stepping stone program because of those limitations they have, both the academic, where you have they have different. A lot of Florida State players couldn't play at Georgia Tech, or academically maybe be eligible to play at Georgia Tech and stay eligible. In a lot of programs, you couldn't do that. It's sort of like,
and it doesn't speak to the kid. It doesn't speak to the kid either.
And I'm calculus courses. It's a whole nother level of It's a whole nother level of academia. Like you said, it doesn't speak to the level of the kid. It's just tough, and it's hard to get in. Like, you have to be a superior student athlete in high school just to get into that level, right? And so I think those are self-imposed limitations, just the institution of Georgia Tech, where they can't get to that next level because it's tough, unless you're like a Wake Forest that somehow, and I don't know what the academic comparison between Georgia Tech and Wake Forest may be.
Or even Duke and the success they're having this year under Mike Elko. I mean, that's a really, really good Wake Forest has found their guy. And I'll say this about it. Wake Forest found Dave Clawson, and they've held on to him. Like you said, Bruce, it's really rare they do that. Right. It's time, if you're Georgia Tech, to go find your guy. You got to find
a developer of talent. You don't need a guy like Deion who just can find transfers. You need a guy that can develop raw.
It's totally like that, KD.
He can find the 2 stars and turn them into 3 and 4 stars. I don't think Deion has shown he can do that. He just grabs 5 stars to FCS and dominates. We don't know what he can do development-wise.
I realized I'm on a Florida State podcast, and he grabbed that 5-star that Florida State fans really, really wanted.
Exactly. Okay, true, right? Here's the reality. Here's the reality, Bryce.
He can do as a coach developmental-wise. I think it's a huge risk if anyone takes him at a major FBS program.
When do you think they're going to make the decision, Bryce? When are they going to make the decision? End of the season?
So,
can this interim coach, can Coach Key, if he wins out, is he the guy? How do you turn that guy down if he wins out, which is not going to happen?
If he beats Georgia, I'll have a shaved head, and he will be paraded around the state. So, but seriously, in this,
they're going to wait to the end of the season, right?
They'll wait to the end of the season. They'll wait to the end of the season publicly. Now, what they're not going to do is they're going to have a name in mind, in my opinion, before Thanksgiving, because you have to. Because at that point, you're 2 to 3 weeks before an international signing day. You can't wait. Kids in limbo. We reported it today. They've got 2 kids that have decommitted in the past 48 hours. You can't take that risk.
No, that's right.
Of that.
That's right. That's right.
Talk with some people privately. They're going to be able to go to certain recruits and say, "Hey, this is who the next head coach is." And then, probably the Monday after the Georgia game. I don't foresee them going to a bowl game. The Monday after the Georgia game, they'll name the new head coach, and now everyone publicly can, feel good about where they are.
And you can leak it to us. Anything you want. We'll push it out. We've got nothing to lose.
We'll do that for sure. Deion Sanders, why not? Just throw it up there.
Let's flip up to reality again. And this is, how does Georgia Tech beat Florida State on Saturday? You're ranked, you're number 125 FBS, 125 in offense.
Yeah.
Pretty bad offense. 125.
That's pretty bad's around 75. That's god awful.
You're 125.
That's FCS. You're in another team.
Defensively, you're 84th. How do you match up with us? We're at number 26 on offense and number 26 on defense, if you can believe that. But how do you win this game? Is it turnovers? Is it a wet ball game? It looks like a cloudy day. I give my talented weather report later. But how do you win this game?
I mean, turnovers obviously have to be there. You have to create chaos. The numbers are a tad bit misleading defensively, and I'll say this why. I saw an updated defensive rankings since week 5, week 6, and really it gets into when Brent Key took over, Jeff Collins left. Guys, this defense has been really good. Georgia Tech's defense has been very, very good since Jeff Collins is gone. Now, because of the caveat, Pitt, their running back, Izzy, whatever his last name is, really good running back that Pitt has, got hurt in the game against Georgia Tech. That obviously took a lot away. Duke, Duke beat the brakes off of Miami, and Georgia Tech limited them to 20 points. Yeah. And it was not until late in the game. It was only 13 offensive points. Yeah. So the defense has played better. The scary part of this game for me is I do not believe that Georgia Tech's offense has the ability to help out its defense enough to win this football game. And any game, honestly, for the rest of the way. Without Jeff Sims at quarterback, I don't think they could do that. Now, if he's playing, that changes some things. I know the line was like 24 points, I think we were talking about earlier.
24?
That is insanely high, to me. But have you watched a Georgia Tech offense without Jeff Sims? It may not be that insanely high. That's how a lot of the fan base feels. And so we'll see what happens. We'll see how it transpires in the field on Saturday. But one, you got to create chaos. Two, you're going to have to make a big special teams play, whether that is a blocked punt, something that can take the wind out of the sails of Florida State. And then look, when they went down there and beat them in 2020, it wasn't the best weather. It was kind of some nasty weather. I'm pretty sure they had a lightning delay in that game back in 2020. So you're going to have a couple of breaks. And then the last thing, we'll get kind of to the schematics-wise. The 2 games they've won under Brent Key, they've averaged over 4.5 yards a carry. The one game they lost, I think they were at 1.9. If they can establish the run, they'll have a chance.
Here's how you can win the game. I'm going to give you the secret, and you can
I'll take it back to the team.
Here it is. Here it is.
He definitely, after my show, has me on speed dial. I'll tell you that.
This is how you win the game, Bryce. You sneak a uniform into Chris Winkie, and you suit him up. Okay? He's the quarterback's coach, I know, but, suit him up. Chris Winkie knows how to beat Florida State.
He could probably maybe he won't run that ball out of bounds. I mean, that's
and he doesn't run at all, so he's not going to make it any out of bounds. Here's the other way. You keep this game so close that we have to trot our field goal kicker out there, Fitzpatrick, Fitzgerald. Mm-hmm. Ryan Fitzgerald has struggled. Now, this week, Coach said he's had a great week of practice and he's ready to go. But if you keep it close and it comes down to a field goal, you're going to have a chance. Those are the 2 keys.
Well, I think to Bryce's point, if they can establish the run, we've been gutted up the middle.
We have
the last 3 weeks, and that's where Fabian Lovett's been missing. If we get him back this week even on a limited snap count, and that makes a difference. Like you said, if we can hold your run game to below 4.4 yards per carry, especially in the middle, I think it's a different ball game, and that's how. But if we allow that opens up the playbook, right? You guys are establish a run, allow Jeff to get comfortable, because he can balance the playbook. And I think that's the difference, right? But if we shut that down early and don't let you guys and force him to have to sit back there and allow our defensive line to collapse on him, I think it's an early route.
And I'll flip it if you don't mind defensively, if you want something with this, because I think this is important. I'm nervous about the ability in the passing game that Florida State has. I don't know that Georgia Tech has been introduced to that. You could say, Clemson didn't have a strong passing game in week 1. I still don't feel like they have a very good one. Ole Miss, surprisingly, guys, is the number 1 team running the football in the country. That's what they do well. They can throw it, but we saw when LSU, who you guys are familiar with, made them throw the ball, Ole Miss lost.
Yeah.
I don't think this team has really been tested through the air. And I think that you got to remind me, I had so many notes. What's the big receiver
Johnny
for
Wilson.
you guys? Okay, he scares
6'7".
me. So he scares me because how do you match up with him? And it's not just one guy. A lot of teams you say, we take him out, let someone else beat us. I think Florida State's – I've said this to our fans, and we've got a preview show coming out on our podcast on Friday. This Florida State team is way better than the record indicates, just in my opinion. And I might be hyping, the Florida State fans. I think they are. I think they've kind of – they're improved from last year. Mm-hmm. I think you can say that.
Yeah.
I
no,
think
they have.
We could discuss that later.
No, they have. They could have one or two.
Eventually, got to win
right
games,
now.
but that's a different story.
You have to. You're right.
Yeah.
But I think that they're trending from a national perspective. They're trending in the right direction is where you want to go as a program.
Sure.
Like I think that they've made some strides. So I think the fact that we've had a lot of fans, Georgia Tech fans said, well, they've lost 3 straight. Yeah, but have you seen who they lost to? Like, it's not like they're losing to, Mother Mary's School of the Blind. I mean, they're playing some really good quality competition. Now, you could also argue they should have won a couple of those games.
100%.
So I think that in going into this game already kind of as a, having a, licking your wounds after an embarrassing national TV loss, I don't think it's, a lot of fans have a confidence in this going to this game that I don't necessarily have. Those things worry me. And like you're talking about, the passing game for Florida State, Tech's about to enter a stretch of games that, I think it's Florida State, North Carolina, even Miami to an extent. We'll see what Jake Garcia can do. And then obviously Georgia into the year. Those are teams that can throw the football. And so what does it look like in those games? And it starts on Saturday.
Well, the other thing you have to account for now, you're going to see Jordan Travis run the football more.
Yeah.
Okay. He's a triple threat type of guy. He's going to start opening up a little bit more with his legs. We feel like this year he tried to establish himself as a passer because he was only known basically as a runner and he had happy feet. He now is confident in throwing the ball, but he will also take off and get big chunks of yardage on the run. So he has to be accounted for.
It's been something over the past couple of weeks that it's either being built into the game plan now, or it's now he's willing to do it because, like you said, the first 3 or 4 weeks he would not run the ball. But now,
and that's big. A willingness to run is totally different than an ability to run. It does. It really changes a lot of things.
Yeah. Bryce, we've asked you a lot of questions tonight. Do you have any questions for us that you think your fans would be interested in?
I do. A serious question and a not so serious question. The serious question is, what's the best place to go drown your sorrows in Tallahassee? Because fans are going to need that after this game, I think.
Madison Social.
It's got to be Madison Social.
Yeah, Madison Social.
You can walk to the stadium from it. They got every drink you can ever think of. And,
perfect.
That's the Strip Friday night. They'll have a big tailgate party there. They always have a big band there. And it's a good time. Madison Social.
Madison Social. So we'll make sure to let the fans know that. And then in a real question, what is the perception, and I know, KB, you were kind of getting to this a little bit, of Georgia Tech from Florida State? I think that's something that we, as Georgia Tech, me covering Georgia Tech, and for the fans, what's the perception of where this program is? Because I think that you and I are on the same wavelength. I need you to deal a little bit of dose of realistic expectation of where this program is right now as a whole. Not, in this game, but just as a whole.
I'll give you what my perception is as our fan base is very overconfident against any opponent. Last 3 weeks, NC State, Wake Forest, Clemson, we're going to beat the hell out. We're going to beat them. We're going to win. They're talking. FSU Twitter, as you probably know, is probably like the biggest menace to society that for college football.
Hey, you're going to take away all our viewers, man.
Jeez,
okay, well, it is what it is.
But it is.
But it's a very, I love the confidence, but I hate it because sometimes it's unwarranted, and I just get frustrated because it's just like, nothing's guaranteed. This team has not played well enough to guarantee this confidence. And I don't know where it comes from. We have played so inconsistently that I don't know why we thought we could beat Wake Forest just without even stepping on the field yet. Same thing with NC State. Same thing with Clemson. Not this confidence comes from nowhere. And so against Georgia Tech, it's kind of the same thing. It's like they fired their coach. Jeff Sims is hurt. He's a traitor. Like, we're gonna beat the brakes off of them. And I come to this game thinking no game these last 5 games are not guaranteed. None of these games is a cakewalk. Even against BC, I didn't think it was going to be a cakewalk, and we beat the brakes off of them. But as a fan of Florida State, I think I take no one on our schedule for granted, and that includes Georgia Tech. I think they have the team, they have the talent to be able to pull up an upset because we've seen it in the past. I think our fan base, though, is expecting this to be a 24-plus point victory. Just to be honest with you, just because there is this confidence that I'm not sure where it comes from. but there's this confidence that we have the better talent. We're going to come on the field. We're going to show it, and we're just going to steamroll them.
I think
Gotcha.
That's not my thoughts. That is most of the fan base's thoughts.
Okay, and I'll agree with most of what KB said. I think that this team is hyped, has been hyped from fall camp through by our local beat reporters and media, the Florida State media. I really do. I'm being honest with it. I think it was hyped in a lot of different areas. I think that was part of the problem. But this team is not in a position to overlook any team that they play, including Georgia Tech, for the rest of the season. They could. I believe Florida State's going to win this game. I don't know if they're going to win by 24 points or 10 points or 3 points. I think they're going to win this game. If they don't win this game, this coaching staff's in trouble. Okay. This coaching staff, we're on a fence line. It's a narrow line of the fans totally buying in at this point. They still buy into Coach Norvell and the staff. And I do believe they're working their asses off personally. They are working their asses off.
Yeah, you would hope so.
That's why he says these things they're working their asses off. That's what they're paid millions to do. Please.
However, listen. However, they cannot overlook any team. We're coming off 3 losses. I expect them to come in and play hard. And I think it's going to be a tough game. If this offense is possessing the ball and moving, we've had trouble scoring in the red zone. We're not very highly ranked in the red zone.
Awful.
We're 106th ranked in the red zone because some of it is the coach is afraid to put his field goal kicker out there. We've gone for a lot of 4th and 3, 4th and 2, and failed to get those.
Or you throw fade passes to the 6-foot receiver in the corner of the back of the end zone.
But the bottom line, Bryce, the bottom line is we can't overlook any team. And our biggest, we can't be looking ahead because we play Miami after you. Miami and Florida are our 2 toughest games, just like you play Georgia and whoever else is your rival. Miami and Florida, if we lose both those games, we could have a change in coaching. Prime time to be here for all we know. And what I'm saying is that is huge, but we have to beat Georgia Tech. Because we got 4 wins. We want to get to a bowl game. That's number 5. Louisiana, which is after Miami or after Syracuse, that could be number 6. But we could lose to Miami. We could lose to Florida, and we could lose to Syracuse. We thought Syracuse was going to be a knockover this year. Not so.
No, Syracuse is legit. I want to throw this in there before we wrap it up or go or whatever you guys have. I got a text from the father of a current Georgia Tech player, okay? He's watching right now.
Okay.
I'm not going to out him. He said, tell these guys that Florida State is trash and they're going down. So you got to love the rivalry. You got to love it. It's a good one. I like these matchups historically. It's a fun little rivalry.
And a lot of these kids probably know, like we get a lot of kids from Georgia. You guys have, you guys.
We're glad to have
this kid's from Florida. This kid's from Florida. It's not Jeff Sims. It's not Jeff Sims' dad. No worries. But no. It's good stuff. Good stuff.
I think it's like you said. It's gonna, and that's part of it too. Like Georgia Tech has a lot. I think the matchup would have been more lopsided if Jeff Collins was still the coach. I think when you fire a coach, like you said, it brings a lot more
it brings energy
because they're playing for that interim coach. They want to play just like when Florida State fired or when Jimbo left and they had Odell and the team came together for the bowl game, stuff like that. So I think that actually brought the team together, makes this team Georgia Tech a lot more dangerous in this matchup versus if Jeff was still around.
The biggest thing that I saw after the Duke game, which, we're sitting in there, press conference, emotional win. The first game, Brent Key got to coach at home for his alma mater. They win in overtime. And a young cornerback comes out there, a young defensive back comes into the press conference, and he just has a smile on his face. And he's just like, man, we're just having fun.
Yeah.
And I think that's something, one, I don't want to speak any more ill will of Jeff Collins and what has happened than we already have. It just wasn't good. It didn't work out. Let's don't beat a dead horse. But the fact that this kid just said, we're just having fun playing a football game. This is a kid's game. And he went into it a little bit, even off the record, and just said, it's just good to have fun again. And I think that speaks volumes. And so when kids are having fun, man, it's hard to predict. You don't know what team. I don't think they're the most talented team. I'll argue this. I don't think they're going to be the most talented team that walks into the stadium for the remainder of the season.
Yeah.
But, that doesn't matter. And if you come and play and execute, who knows? Who knows what can happen? So it's going to be a fun one.
Yeah.
Bryce,
And like you said, and just to that point, like you said, in terms of talent doesn't matter in the ACC. You see it with Wake Forest. They don't have the most stars on the roster, but they outplay
They
everyone.
play well together.
Exactly.
They play well together. That's
and
what
to your
matters.
point about culture is everything, whether it be in the business world, in the college world. When you get a guy that when the culture's dead and you bring in somebody else or get rid of them, it does allow people to play free. It really can turn around productivity, whether it be, like I said, corporate or athletics. I think that's a great point.
Bryce, we want to thank you for joining us tonight. It's been fun. It's been entertaining. It's been informative. And Georgia Tech is a great university, and it is tough to get into. So, and they've always had a good tradition of football there, and we're going to welcome them to Tallahassee. We're going to beat the hell out of you people. No. But it's been great. And Bryce, thanks a lot for coming on tonight. It's really made a great program for us.
No, I appreciate it as always, guys, and enjoyed it. And look, there's no better time of the year in the heart of conference play to be talking college football. So it's a fun thing as always. Thanks so much for having me.
Let's stay in touch, buddy.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Have a great one, Bryce. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, thanks again for our friend there, Bryce Koon of 247 Sports, and of his hosted show, The Crowded Booth. So be sure his information is in the banner at the bottom. You can follow him on Twitter. Go and check out his show. Go and check out him on 24/7 and his articles. As you can tell,
his Twitter is Bryce_Koon.
Right there. Yeah, like I said, right there. Follow him. Follow his show. Like he said, they're going to do a preview show on Friday. So go and check that out if you want the in-depth Georgia Tech perspective on what they're saying about Florida State, because obviously it'll be a little bit different than what we're talking about here tonight. But I think it was great to get some insight behind the lines of Georgia Tech and get his candid and raw approach. So really enjoyed having him on the show tonight.
But what's your thoughts on it, KB?
Really great insight.
What he had to say.
Thanks again, Bryce, for coming on. No, I think it'll be an interesting matchup. I think, like Bryce brought up, when you get, it's not dumping on Jeff Collins or anything like that. But like I said, in the corporate world, you work for I've worked for some bad bosses and or just bosses that didn't fit. And when you get rid of that person and that person moves on to someone else, it makes a huge difference in the department, in the company. And it's no different than athletics. When someone moves out that wasn't a great fit, the team and the players, and you feel like you can be yourself again. And you feel like, okay, the pressure, and a new guy comes in that you may have liked more. And it's like, okay, guys, let's just get back to the basics again. Like, let's get back to doing what we like to do, why we're here in the first place. It doesn't matter if that's football or sales or marketing. Let's get back to the basics and do this thing right. And so that's why I think that makes this Georgia Tech team scary, is that they're back to the basics again. They're not trying to overcomplicate it with a coach who
simplify.
Who thinks he's going to be fired the next day. This guy, this interim coach is playing. There's no risk, right? He has no. This is his job.
There's no pressure. There's no pressure. When you're down, when you're an underdog at 24 points, you come in with no pressure on you. No pressure at all.
That's the scariest team.
The pressure is on this Florida State team.
Yes,
the pressure is on Florida State to perform well in each game going forward, including this one.
And
what's your prediction? What's your prediction?
So I think that my prediction is going to be, it is going to be Florida State, because I do think that we'll try to run the ball. We'll establish a ground game.
They're vulnerable to that. They're vulnerable.
I think we'll be able to establish the run game to a certain extent. I think having Fabian Levin back will help with the defense and stopping Georgia Tech's run. To Bryce's point, I think we'll be able to slow down their run game and keep them contained. And I think, again, to Bryce's point, with Jeff Sims not able to run to his normal amount, playing on that bad foot, if he plays at all, I think that's going to reduce the potency of the Georgia Tech offense overall. So I'm going to take Florida State by 20 points. So I'm going to take Georgia Tech with the spread, but I think Florida State wins the game.
Yeah, I agree with a lot what you just said. I think we're going to rush the ball. We've been rushing the ball well all season. We're getting big yardage there, which means possession of the ball, and that opens up the pass. that's the the play action passing, and then you're throwing in Jordan with some runs, even if it's scramble runs and not design runs. I think that's going to overwhelm them. I think it's going to wear them down. I think Florida State wins this game by at least 18 points in that regard, and I think they're going to have a good day on defense. This offense, Jeff Sims, I think he'll start the game. I think he'll try to tough it out, start the game, but he'll be very limited. Plus, as he gets wrapped up, he's going to get wrapped up at times. That leg always gets caught up in that mess, and that's gonna he'll be out of the game probably by the end of the first quarter, first half at least.
I think
so.
Yeah, if Florida State can establish that line, like I think they will, Fabian in the middle, they're going to bring some pressure on him, and they're going to. I think they'll bring a little bit more blitz to try to bring him down early in the first half.
Right. Let me give you the weather report, fans. You're going out to the game. You're going out to the game.
There we go.
Noon kicks suck. We all know that. That's the shirt. You can pick that up at Garnet and Gold. They're not a sponsor of ours. They want to be a sponsor. Fine. Call us up. Garnet and Gold's going to open at 7 a.m. Oh, that sucks.
Okay. We're not sponsored by them. I don't know why you're.
No, I don't know. Why not? So what? Listen, and here's another one. If you're in Tallahassee, anybody listening, Georgia Tech, Florida State, whatever, you got to go to Kiki's. I don't know how early they open, but I think they open early, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. Kiki's, Keke, great place for breakfast. It'll fill you up. You won't need anything else. Get there early because it gets crowded. It's on West Tennessee Street. Okay. So here's the weather. It's going to be a good day for football. It's going to be cloudy the whole day. So you won't need too much sunscreen. That's going to be a good thing. Game time. Between kickoff and the end of the game is going to be 70 to 78 degrees and little chance of rain. They probably didn't practice with wet footballs. Now, here's the problem. Heavy chance of rain on Sunday, and a lot of times that weather moves in early. So we could see some rain late in the game, but I don't think so. That's your old man weather report.
All right. Well, there you go. And as we said before, great place to go to College Town, hit up
Madison Social. Yeah.
There's a bunch of restaurants down there, but
yeah,
Madison Social will definitely treat you right if you're going there for brunch or a little late or early dinner afterwards. So I think that's going to do it for the show. We gave our predictions. So I'm picking Georgia Tech with the spread, but Florida State overall taking the win. And I think you're taking Florida State with the spread, correct?
Yep.
24. All right, great. Well, thanks again, everyone who joined us. And thanks again to Bryce, 247 Sports, and for coming by and joining us tonight. Be sure, like we said, to check out his content.
Yes.
Once again, in the banner below at the Crowded Booth, his show, and they're doing a preview show on Friday. So thanks again, Bryce, for coming by. And if you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate all the support you guys give us. It really means a lot to see new members joining every day, every week. And then if you like audio more, follow us on your favorite podcast network, Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, whatever it is. I will not be there for the live reaction on Saturday because I'll be at a wedding, unfortunately. And that's why I'm going down to Raleigh. But
it'll be me.
It will be the old man who will give you the live instant reaction after the Georgia Tech game. So be sure to tune in at 3:30-ish. And the old man will give you a breakdown of what happens, hopefully a win, and it will be short and sweet. So check out that on Saturday.
Maybe KB will call in. Who knows?
Maybe I won't. Let's find out. But yeah, tune in on Saturday, guys. Thanks again for dropping by, and give this video a like. We appreciate it.
Be safe.